The 1993 McDonald's All-American team has a few heavy hitters, but is mostly filled with solid college players who had limited success in the pros. Of course, there are still a few good players who, for whatever reason, didn't make the cut in '93. The list of players who didn't make the squad includes future Hall of Famers Ray Allen and Tim Duncan, among several others. With that said, those guys didn't make the team, so let's take a look at what happened to every McDonald's All-American player from the '93 squad. Joey Beard. The 6'10" center started his college career at Duke. As a freshman, Beard played sparingly in 16 games, averaging 1.3 points in just 4 minutes a night. In some respects, it's not that surprising that Beard couldn't get on the court. After all, the Dukies already had quite a bit of talent on the team in Grant Hill, Cherokee Parks, Antonio Lang, and Chris Collins. Plus, it was still relatively rare for freshmen to star on teams that made it to the national championship back in '94. However, Beard was frustrated at his lack of minutes and elected to transfer to Boston College after his freshman season. With the Terriers, Beard grew into a nightly double-double threat while adding a steal and block per night. Alongside Tunji Awajobi, Beard led Boston to the NCAA tourney in '97, losing to Tulsa in the first round. Beard went undrafted in '98 and quickly moved overseas to play pro ball. He did stints in France, Germany, Spain, Italy, and Belgium before retiring in 2009. Since then, he's spent a few years as the assistant coach at Emory, but has mostly been working in marketing for companies like HBO and Comcast. As of 2024, he's working in sales for an Atlanta-based cybersecurity company. Keith Booth. If you've been watching these for a while, Booth is another in a long line of Paul Lawrence Dunbar players to make the McDonald's roster. The 6'6" forward signed with Maryland, which was notable because he was the first Baltimore City player to join the Terps after former coach Bob Wade resigned due to NCAA violations. During his 4 years with the Terps, Booth never averaged less than 10 points and 6 rebounds a night. By his senior season, he was dropping 19.5 points, 7.9 boards, 2.6 assists, and 2 steals. Maryland also made the tournament all 4 years he was there, making the Sweet 16 in '94 and '95. Granted, Booth took a backseat to future number 1 overall pick Joe Smith during those 2 tourney runs, but he was still a very solid collegiate player, making 3rd team All-American in '97. The Bulls picked him 28th overall in the '97 draft. He played there for 2 seasons, winning a title in '98, but only played in 45 total games, averaging 2.9 points a night. Booth then went back to school to finish his degree and worked as a teacher and coach back in Maryland. In 2004, he joined the Terps coaching staff, working there for 7 years. In 2011, he moved to Loyola University, Maryland, where he spent 7 more years spread between the men's and women's teams. Booth spent a few years coaching AAU ball before taking over as the head coach at Paul Lawrence Dunbar for a season. As of 2024, he's still coaching at the youth level. Bobby Crawford. Crawford left Texas to start his college career at Michigan. The 6'2" guard averaged about 12 minutes off the bench for a team that made the Elite Eight, backing up star guards Jalen Rose and Jimmy King. With Rose off to the NBA after the season, Crawford could have been in line for more playing time, but it didn't work out. Not only did his playing time stagnate and his stats decrease, but Crawford only played in 15 games. He decided to transfer to Rice after the season. After sitting out a year, Crawford became a double-digit scorer in '96-97. In his senior season with the Owls, Crawford averaged 13.4 points, 4 boards, 4 assists, and just over a steal a night. Soon after graduating, Crawford went to Washington University in St. Louis, where he earned his MBA. He's been working with Wells Fargo since 2003. Damon Flint. Flint's recruiting story is one of the more controversial ones in this class. He was originally signed to attend Ohio State. However, during a visit to the Buckeyes campus, Flint was given a free gym bag and off-campus meal. Both of those are NCAA violations, and someone tipped the organization off after the visit. The NCAA subsequently ruled that Flint would be ineligible to play as a freshman at Ohio State, so he switched his commitment to Cincinnati. Officially, the tip was anonymous, but many Ohio State fans believe that Cincinnati head coach Bob Huggins was somehow involved. There's some juice to that rumor because the JV coach at Flint's high school was promoted to a position on Huggins' staff after Flint arrived on campus. Regardless of how it happened, Flint played well as a freshman alongside fellow McDonald's All-American Dontonio Wingfield. averaging 12.6 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 assists per night. He lost his starting role in 94 and 95, and his numbers dropped, but he was back in the starting lineup for his final 2 years, averaging double-digit points to go with about 3 assists. The 6'5" guard went undrafted, so he spent several years playing ball overseas. As of 2020, he appears to be living a normal life, taking care of his kids and doing a bit of coaching at the youth level. He was also seen at the Reds opening day parade ahead of the 2024 season, but that article didn't have any updates about his life. Sylvester Ford Jr. Deuce played high school ball at Fairleigh under his father, who tallied 687 wins during his 40 years as a head coach in the Memphis area, with his son leading the charge. Fairleigh won the Tennessee State title that season, and Deuce kept it local, signing to play at Memphis. He spent 2 seasons with the Tigers, averaging 6 points and 5 rebounds. However, he was limited to just 11 games during his sophomore season and elected to transfer to LSU. His minutes went up with the Tigers, which helped him raise his scoring average to 11.5 a night. However, he isn't listed on the roster during what would be his senior season. Regardless, he never made it into the NBA and was soon following in his father's footsteps as a coach and educator back in the Memphis area, where he's still working as of 2024. Jon Garavaglia. Garavaglia's college choice ultimately came down to Michigan or Michigan State. He decided to join the Spartans, thinking he'd have more chances for playing time given how stacked the Wolverines roster was during the Fab 5 run. As a freshman, he averaged about 11 minutes off the bench, scoring 3 points a night. He became a starter in year 2, averaging 7.6 points and 5 boards a night. His numbers dipped slightly in 96 as Tom Izzo took over the program, but he had a relatively successful senior season that saw the 6'9" guard drop 10.4 points and 6 rebounds a night. He went undrafted in 97 and went overseas to play pro ball. The big guy spent time in Portugal, France, Italy, and Greece before leaving the game in 2004. Soon after, he'd opened up a gym back in Michigan called Basketball Planet. However, it looks like the gym closed sometime in the last 3 or 4 years. Rashard Griffith. Notably, Griffith was selected for the McDonald's game, but didn't play because he'd already played in 2 All-Star games. The big guy played high school ball at King, where he formed a dominant front court tandem with 7'2" center Thomas Hamilton. The duo won a state title before Griffith signed to play with Wisconsin. He spent 2 seasons with the Badgers, averaging nearly 16 points, 10 boards, and 2.4 blocks over his career. Notably, he set the Wisconsin record for career block shots in only 2 years, though that mark was later broken. After making the All-Big Ten roster, Griffith decided to jump to the NBA, where the Bucks picked him in the second round of the 95 draft. He spent the summer training camp with the team, but never played for them in the league. He spent the next several seasons playing overseas in Turkey and Israel before the Magic traded for his rights in 2002. They originally wanted to add him to the roster, but it never worked out, and Griffith was back overseas. He played through the 2010 season, spending time in Italy, Spain, Puerto Rico, and Romania. Over his career, Griffith won quite a bit of hardware, including the 2001 EuroLeague. He was also named the Italian Cup MVP that season. In 2017, he went back to Wisconsin to earn his degree and was working as a team manager and mentor for the men's team. In 2022, he was named the head coach for a high school girls basketball team in Wisconsin. Cedric Henderson. After starring at East High School, Henderson joined Deuce Ford at Memphis State. Unlike Ford, Henderson started nearly every game during his 4 years with the Tigers, averaging 14 points and 5 rebounds over his career. Often the second or third option alongside Lorenzen Wright and Mingo Johnson, Henderson got his chance to be the lead dog in 97, dropping 16 points and 6.5 boards a game. Of course, that was also the one season Memphis didn't make the tournament, but it was enough for the Cavs to select him in the second round of the 97 draft. Despite being picked relatively late, Henderson started nearly every game of his rookie season, averaging 10 points and 4 boards a night to make the all-rookie roster. He started all but 2 games in the lockout-shortened 98-99 season, but Cleveland brought in Lamond Murray in 2000, and Henderson was relegated to the bench. He spent 1 more season in Cleveland and was traded to Golden State in 2001. Henderson played in 12 games with the Warriors before being traded to the 76ers and waived. The next year he signed with the Bucks, but never played and was waived after a month. Henderson then started playing in the lower leagues and overseas, including stints in France, Lebanon, Cyprus, and Ukraine. He retired in 2007 and soon got into coaching. He's largely worked as a head coach at the high school level in Memphis, but did a stint at Christian Brothers University, a D2 program in Memphis. As of 2024, he's back in the Memphis high school ranks. His son Cedric played college ball at Campbell and Arizona. Ronnie Henderson. Henderson was used to playing with top-rated stars. He spent his junior season of high school playing with previous McDonald's All-American Othella Harrington at Murrah in Jackson, Mississippi. When he signed with LSU to join 1993 Gatorade National Player of the Year Randy Livingston, big things were expected. We'll talk about Livingston in a few minutes, but Henderson mostly lived up to the hype with the Tigers. As a freshman, he averaged 16 points, largely off the bench. The next year, his scoring jumped to 23 points a night. He led the team in scoring once again in 95-96 with 22 points a night and decided to head to the NBA draft after making back-to-back All-SEC teams. Washington picked him in the second round of the 96 draft, but he never played in the NBA. He spent the next several years playing overseas. Henderson has since moved back to Mississippi and opened a seafood restaurant in 2021. According to his Facebook, Henderson is running to be mayor of Gulfport, Mississippi in 2025. This isn't an endorsement, but feel free to look into it if you live there. Jerald Honeycutt. Honeycutt joined Tulane for college ball and was the team's leading scorer from the jump. He averaged 18 points and 7 rebounds a night over his 4-year career, topping out at 20 points per game during his senior season. Unfortunately, he only had one tournament appearance despite leading the Green Wave to back-to-back Conference USA regular season titles in 96 and 97. The Bucks selected the two-time CSU player in the second round of the 97 draft. He played in 38 games as a rookie, averaging 6.4 points and 2.4 rebounds. The next season, Milwaukee traded him to Philly, and he was out of the NBA soon after. Honeycutt then spent some time playing in the CBA, making the All-CBA first-team roster in 2003. He also played in Japan for several years before leaving the game behind. In the years since, Honeycutt has been working as a youth coach and is living in Texas, helping run a basketball academy as of 2024. Avondre Jones. The 6'11 Jones was also an aspiring rapper when he signed with USC. As a freshman, he saw limited playing time, averaging 4 points and 3 assists off the bench. He missed the next season due to a combination of injuries and off-the-court issues. In 95-96, he averaged 10 points and 6 boards, but abruptly left the team after head coach Charlie Parker was fired in the middle of the season. New coach Henry Bibby claimed that he was spending too much time on his rap career, but Jones denied that this was an issue. After the season, Jones transferred to Fresno State. The big guy was solid in 97-98, averaging 9.5 points and 7 rebounds for the Bulldogs. However, he continued to struggle with off-court issues. It all culminated in an incident following an NIT victory over Memphis in 98, when Jones was convicted on 2 misdemeanor counts for threatening someone with a samurai sword, a felony charge for having a gun on probation, and another misdemeanor charge for illegal drugs. Unfortunately, it looks like legal troubles have continued to plague the former high school star in the years since. Chris Kingsbury. Kingsbury was born in Nebraska, but his family moved to the Cincinnati area by the time he was playing high school ball. After starting at Hamilton, he signed with Iowa, who had been recruiting him since he was 14. The 6'5 guard came off the bench to average 8 points in 20 minutes a night. His playing time increased in 94-95, dropping 17 points and averaging nearly 40% from 3 on 9 attempts per game. Ahead of his junior season, Kingsbury was arrested for public intoxication and missed a few games. His playing time went down and he only averaged 12 points a night. While the season was disappointing, Kingsbury set several school records for three-pointers made. He was at risk of being ruled academically ineligible for his senior season, so he decided to go to the draft. The guard wasn't selected in 96. He did spend some time with the Heat and Wizards in training camp, but couldn't make a team. He played in the CBA before playing a season in Italy. He then spent 2 years playing for the Cincinnati Stuff in the IBL and left the game in 2001. Soon after, he moved back to Nebraska to work at a bank. His son Carter was a preferred walk-on at Iowa in 2021 and earned a full scholarship with the Hawkeyes in 2024. Randy Livingston. I mentioned Livingston earlier, but it's worth reiterating that he was one of the most hyped players in this class. He started Isidore Newman, which notably had Peyton Manning playing football at the same time he was there. Livingston signed with the LSU Tigers for college, but things quickly took an unfortunate turn. Before even stepping on campus, Livingston tore his ACL and missed the entire 93-94 season. The next season, he played in 16 games, averaging 14 points and 9.4 assists. During his sophomore season, he was limited to 13 games after breaking his kneecap. Even with his injuries, the Rockets took a flyer on him in the 96 draft, picking him in the second round. He played professionally for the next 12 years, continuously ping-ponging between NBA rosters and lower leagues due to injuries. His best NBA stint came in 99-2000 when he played in 79 games for the Suns, averaging 5 points and 2 assists while playing 14 minutes a night. In 2007, Livingston was named the D-League MVP, and the next year, he won a D-League title with the Idaho Stampede. And by 2010, he was coaching the Stampede. In 2012, he moved to Australia and was working as a scout. Livingston returned to his high school alma mater in 2018 to coach the 7th and 8th grade boys basketball team. The next year, he was promoted to the head coach of the varsity team, which he led to state titles in 2022 and 23. Interestingly, one of his players was his former classmate Peyton Manning's nephew and current Texas Longhorn quarterback Arch Manning. In 2023, he was suspended following a recruiting violation, and the school was stripped of his titles. However, he followed a lawsuit against the board and ultimately was allowed to coach and given back the wins after an injunction. His son RJ Livingston plays for his dad and is a top 150 recruit in the 2026 class. He currently has offers from LSU, Georgetown, Michigan State, and several others. Jeff McInnis. McInnis was born in North Carolina, but attended Oak Hill Academy for prep school. The 6'4" guard signed with North Carolina for college ball, one of 3 players from this class to do so. He was played sparingly as a freshman, averaging 5.6 points and 2.4 assists in about 15 minutes a game. The next year, he entered the starting lineup and averaged 12.4 points and 5 assists for a team that made the Final Four. In 95-96, the Tar Heels lost the 2 guys I'll talk about shortly, but added 2 highly touted freshmen in Antoine Jamison and Vince Carter. Still, McInnis led the team in scoring with 16.5 points a night. The Nuggets selected the 2-time All-ACC player in the second round of the 96 draft. McInnis played in 13 games that season before playing in Greece. He then spent some time in the CBA, winning Newcomer of the Year in 98. The Wizards brought him in for 35 games in 98-99, and he averaged 4 points a night. McInnis was back in the CBA soon after, winning the league's MVP award in 2000. He signed with the Clippers and became an NBA starting point guard in 2000, averaging 13 points and 5.5 assists in LA. The next season, he raised those numbers to 15 and 6. In 2002, he signed with the Trailblazers, joining college teammate Rasheed Wallace for a year and a half. After that, McInnis spent a few years in Cleveland, starting 100 games and averaging 12.5 points and 6 assists per game. The Nets brought him in to back up Jason Kidd in 2005, but an injury limited his time with the team. He finished his career with 2 seasons with the Bobcats, retiring after the 2008 season. The next year, McInnis started coaching at the AAU level, where he worked for several years. In 2024, he joined the Charleston Cougars staff as an assistant coach. Charles O'Bannon. If you've been watching these videos, you'll remember Charles's brother Ed, who played college ball at UCLA after dealing with injuries. The younger O'Bannon joined his brother with the Bruins, starting from the jump. He averaged double-digit points and 6 rebounds over his 4-year career, helping UCLA win the 95 title with his brother. Ed left for the NBA after the season, and Charles grew into the team's leading scorer by his senior year, averaging nearly 18 points and 7 boards a night to get his second All-Pac-12 team nod. The Pistons selected him in the second round of the 97 draft. O'Bannon played parts of 2 years in Detroit, averaging 2.5 points and 8 minutes a night. In 99, he moved overseas and spent time playing in Poland, Japan, and Italy, winning league titles in the first 2. O'Bannon has done some assistant coaching work over the years, most notably with Bishop Gorman High School in Las Vegas, where his son Chuck played. Speaking of Chuck, he was a McDonald's All-American in 2017 before joining USC. After some injuries, he transferred to TCU and played for 4 years. He went undrafted in 2024 and is playing for the Nitra Blue Wings in Slovakia for the 24-25 season. Jason Osborne. Osborne joined a loaded Louisville team under Denny Crum. The 6'8" freshman was the team's 5th leading scorer, with 9.6 points a night as the Clifford Rozier-led Cardinals raced to a Sweet 16 appearance. With Rozier, Dwayne Morton, and Greg Minor all leaving for the NBA, Osborne had to step up in '95. He raised his scoring to 11.6 per game, though freshman Samaki Walker and fellow sophomore DeJuan Wheat's success meant he was still just the third option. Unfortunately, he was ruled ineligible during the '96 season, and Osborne decided to head to the draft. He was not selected, but did spend some time playing overseas. After hanging him up, the big guy has led a relatively normal life. His son JJ Traynor played at Louisville from 2020 to 2024 before transferring to DePaul, where he's averaging 7.8 points and 20 minutes a night at the time of this video. Darnell Robinson. Robinson joined a Arkansas Razorback team that would win the '94 championship. The 6'11 big played about 18 minutes a night, giving Arkansas about 8 points and 5 rebounds. Over the next 2 years, he would struggle with injuries, missing time here and there. That said, he averaged 13 points and 7 rebounds across 20 games during his junior season before heading to the draft. In '96, the Mavs picked him in the second round. Robinson never played in the NBA, but did spend the next several years playing overseas, including stints in Italy, Greece, Israel, Puerto Rico, and France. While in Greece, his coach once said that he was, quote, one of the greatest underachievers he'd ever coached. He was seemingly out of basketball by 2000 and has been leading a relatively normal life. Robinson does have a few online listings for public speaking, but I'm not sure how current those are. Jerry Stackhouse. The co-MVP of the McDonald's game was born in North Carolina, but moved to Mouth of Wilson, Virginia to play prep ball at Oak Hill, joining fellow McDonald's All-American Jeff McInnis. At the time, some scouts called Stackhouse the best prep player to come out of North Carolina since Michael Jordan. Like MJ, Stack joined the Tar Heels at UNC, teaming with high school teammate McInnis and future pros Rasheed Wallace and Shammond Williams. He came off the bench for big minutes as a freshman, averaging 12 points a night. The next year, Stack became a starter and dropped 19 points and 8 rebounds a game to make the All-American first team. UNC also made it to the Final Four, and Sports Illustrated named him National Player of the Year. Stackhouse decided to skip his final 2 seasons and head to the NBA, where the 76ers picked him 3rd overall in the '95 draft, the same spot as Jordan. As a rookie, he led the team in scoring at 19 a night and made the all-rookie roster. The next year, Philly added Allen Iverson, and the two formed a potent scoring duo. However, in the middle of the '97-98 season, Stackhouse was dealt to the Pistons in a deal that included his former UNC teammate Eric Montross. Over the next few years, he upped his scoring to 24 and then nearly 30 a night in 2001, making back-to-back All-Star teams. The Pistons decided to trade him to the Wizards in 2002 in a deal that brought Rip Hamilton to Detroit. It also meant that Stack was playing alongside Michael Jordan, as the 39-year-old had come out of retirement the season prior. Stackhouse then became MJ's first teammate to average more points per game in a season than the all-time great. Unfortunately, Stackhouse started to pick up injuries the next year, missing most of the 03-04 season. He was dealt again, this time to the Mavs, where he'd continue to fight knee and groin injuries. This largely relegated Stack to the bench, where he consistently picked up 6 Man of the Year votes from 04 to 07. He'd play through the 2013 season with the Nets, before retiring after 18 years in the NBA. While not quite the next Jordan he had been hyped as, Stack averaged 17 points across his long career, even with all of his injury troubles. He spent a few years in broadcasting before joining the Raptors staff as an assistant. Stack continued to build up his resume at NBA stops until Vanderbilt brought him on as its head coach. He spent 5 years with the school, but failed to ever make the NCAA tournament. In 2024, he was fired and he went back to the assistant ranks in the NBA, signing with Golden State. Jacque Vaughn. Vaughn was the other co-MVP of the McDonald's game. He decided to head to Kansas to play for Roy Williams, continuing the pipeline of California players joining the Jayhawks under the legendary coach. He was an instant starter in Lawrence, though he played more of a facilitator role to get seniors Steve Woodbury and Richard Scott good looks. That was essentially the tale of his 4-year career. The 6'1" point guard made a killing getting the ball to Scott Pollard, Rafe LaFrentz, and Paul Pierce over the years. Of course, that doesn't mean he couldn't get a bucket, as Vaughn averaged 9.6 points over his career. During his final 2 seasons in college, Vaughn was named a second-team All-American. He also won Big 8 Player of the Year in '96. He left Kansas as the all-time leader in assists, though Aaron Miles eventually surpassed him years later. The Jazz picked him 27th overall in the '97 draft. He spent 4 years with the team, coming off the bench as a steady hand. He then bounced to Atlanta, Detroit, back to Atlanta, and New Jersey before joining the Spurs in 2006. There, he helped win the 2007 title, before retiring after the 2009 season. Soon after, he joined the Spurs staff as an assistant. In 2012, he was named the Orlando Magic's head coach, but the team struggled mightily until he was fired in 2015. Vaughn then spent some time as an assistant again before getting another shot as an NBA coach with the Nets in 2022. He led the team to the playoffs the first year, but started poorly the next season, and he was fired once again in February 2024. Rasheed Wallace. As mentioned, Wallace joined Stackhouse and McInnis at UNC. The big guy played well as a freshman, averaging 9.5 points, 6.6 boards, and 1.8 blocks in 21 minutes a night. As a sophomore, Sheed became a starter, and raised his averages to 16.6 points, 8 boards, and nearly 3 blocks to make the second-team All-American squad and help the Tar Heels to the Final Four. Like Stackhouse, Wallace left the school after the season to start his NBA career. Washington selected him with the 4th pick in the '95 draft, 1 pick after Stack. As a rookie, he averaged 10 points and 5 rebounds a night to make second-team All-Rookie. The Wizards traded him to Portland after the season in a deal that included Rod Strickland. Playing with a loaded Trailblazers team that included bigs Clifford Robinson, Arvydas Sabonis, and an 18-year-old rookie Jermaine O'Neal, Sheed set about establishing himself as one of the better power forwards in the league. By 2000, he was an All-Star, averaging 16 points and 7 boards. He made the All-Star team a second time in 2001, but off-the-court distractions and on-court technical fouls quickly became the leading topic of discussion, not just for Wallace, but for the entire Portland squad. Sometimes referred to as the Jailblazers, Portland eventually wanted to shed its bad boy image and shipped out several of the players, including Wallace. He was traded to Atlanta in 2004, playing in 1 game before joining the Pistons. There, Sheed continued to get technicals from time to time, which is probably putting it lightly, but he transformed into an excellent defender who could stretch the floor out to the 3-point line despite being 6'11", a skill he'd started to display during his last few seasons in Portland. That year, the Pistons won a title against the heavily favored Lakers. The Pistons ran it back to the finals in 2005, but lost in 7 to the Spurs. Sheed made his 3rd All-Star appearance that year alongside 3 of his teammates, Ben Wallace, Chauncey Billups, and Rip Hamilton. Wallace stuck with the Pistons for a few more seasons, making his 4th and final All-Star team in 2008. He joined the Celtics in 2008, retiring after the season. She'd spent 2 full years out of the league, but came out of retirement to play in 21 games with the Knicks in 2013 before getting injured and retiring a second time. That year, he joined the Pistons staff as an assistant. Wallace was coaching a high school team in 2019 and joined the Memphis Tigers staff in 2021. The next year, he stopped working his in-person role due to his health, but continued to help the program remotely. As of 2024, the originator of Ball Don't Lie has entered the podcasting world, Sherron Wilkerson. Wilkerson had a tough start to his college career that technically began before he ever joined Bobby Knight's Indiana squad. He was named Mr. Basketball in Indiana, but the award was vacated after Wilkerson left the Indiana All-Star team during a game against the Kentucky All-Star team in protest over getting benched. Decisions like that would follow him into college. He played decent minutes as a freshman, averaging 3 points in 17 minutes a game. However, that season is best remembered for an incident where Coach Knight headbutted him during a timeout. It's worth noting that Knight claims it was an accident, but you never know with that guy. Wilkerson missed the entire next season with a broken leg. When he got back into the lineup, he was a starter, averaging 7.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, and 3.2 assists. However, he was dismissed from the team in January after being arrested and charged with domestic violence. He eventually joined the University of Rio Grande, an NAIA school, and averaged 25 points a night. In '97, Wilkerson started playing pro ball in the IBA. He went undrafted in '98 and moved overseas, playing for teams in Sweden, Latvia, Italy, Germany, Brazil, and Israel, before retiring after the 2005 season. Soon after, he started coaching at the high school level. As of 2024, he's the head coach back at his high school alma mater. Dontonio Wingfield. The 6'8" forward led his high school team at Westover to 4 straight titles. Wingfield decided to join Bob Huggins' team at Cincinnati, planning to step in for departing guard Nick Van Exel. He did exactly that, establishing himself as a star immediately by breaking Oscar Robinson's school record for most points and rebounds in a debut. Often referred to as Baby Shaq in Cincinnati, Wingfield averaged 16 points and 9 boards while showing off a solid 3-point shot. To understand what happens next, you have to know a bit more about Wingfield's past. He was raised by a single mother and already had 3 kids by the time he finished high school. With that in mind, it's not a huge surprise that Wingfield decided to jump to the NBA after his freshman season. The Supersonics picked him in the second round of the '94 draft. He averaged 2 points in 4 minutes across 20 games as a rookie. The expansion Raptors picked him in the expansion draft in '95, but waived him before the season. He then joined the Trailblazers for 3 years, averaging 4 points across 94 games in Portland. In '98, he spent 1 season in Spain before leaving his playing career behind. It's worth noting that he'd endured several injuries over the years, including a car accident that caused him to break both ankles and 5 bones in his back. In 2010, his injury woes continued, as Wingfield had to have his left leg amputated below the knee due to complications of diabetes. However, he's been active in youth sports back in his hometown, including coaching AAU teams. Wingfield has 9 children, a few of which played collegiately. DJ played at Ohio University, though his career was cut short due to injuries. Donovan was a volleyball player at Tuskegee University. Jalen is a 4-star prospect in the class of 2026. The 6'8" forward has offers from Alabama, Auburn, Georgia, and, of course, Cincinnati, amongst several other prominent schools. And that wraps up the '93 McDonald's All-American class. I'll be back with the '94 squad in a couple of weeks, but in the meantime, if you have ideas for future videos, please share them below in the comments.